Hello everyone. Today we are going to do a walkthrough of the SimpleCTF offered by TryHackMe. It's a very nice box. It's geared more towards beginners to help them build their pen testing methodology and acquaint them with basic exploitations and privilege escalation techniques. But it's also a very nice box if you want to try various ways of gaining access to a machine through a lesser known CMS, content management system. We're going to do this like a black box pen testing, which means that we're not going to look at any of the questions, since they might lead us towards a way of compromising the machine, and we're going to actually see various ways of gaining access to it. So without further ado, let's try and hack it. Right, so first things first, let's try to ping our machine to see if everything is up and running. We seem to be okay. Now let's try to run an initial simple Nmap scan with the most popular ports. Okay, that's the -F option here. So we can see we have port 21 and port 20, and I think that they might give us a good foothold to the machine. Now another thing I always like to do is to launch a full port scan to this machine. Now this is kind of a double-edged sword. On one hand, this scan may reveal valuable ports which are not so commonly used that are needed to advance in hacking that machine. But they might be also extremely slow, even impossible to complete. I mean, I've done CTFs where the full port scan didn't even finish even after I had compromised the machine. It was somewhere around 7 to 10%, and it had hours ahead of it. But it's always a good strategy to launch it first thing when you're doing your scanning, and who knows what it may find. Now another tool that we can use here is RustScan. Alright, RustScan is another good tool for port scanning. However, sometimes it tends to be highly inaccurate. Alright, actually you have to fiddle around the upper limit and the batch file size options to find the golden the best way to run this tool. Alright, if you don't set these parameters right, your scan may be extremely slow. If those parameters are too high, as now, you're not going to find anything. Okay, so it seems that RustScan is not going to help us in this machine, but we can see that the full port scan has already revealed something very interesting here. So it has discovered an open port 2222, which is not so commonly used. Most of the time this port is used for as an alternative to SSH. So it's a good idea to include that to our search. Okay, so right now we're going to launch practically full scan to the machine, and the ports that we have found: 2180, 2222, our IP address, and we're going to set the results in a file called nmap.txt, which will allow us to investigate the findings later on. Okay, so let's launch our scan, and since we have port 80 open, then it's always a good idea to try to get a feeling of what's in there. All right, so WhatWeb is a great tool. It can help us find quite a few interesting things. Of course, it's basic information, but it can give us a pretty good idea of what's running under the hood in that website. Okay, yeah, all right, it is completed. It took a bit longer, so we can see that it used Apache with that specific version. We have Ubuntu Linux as the operating system, and we can see that the title is Apache to Ubuntu default page. Okay, so that's the default page as we can see right here. So if there is anything at port 20, it's not here. We'll have to look at another directory. So that should get our gears spinning towards this. Okay, so let's try and brute force some directories out of this website. We're going to use GoBuster in the directory mode. We're going to define the IP address since we don't have an actual name here. Wordless, no AMAS. We're going to use GoBuster. Now, this specific word list is my personal favorite. It has great content. It will get you through most of CTFs. You will be able to find some very interesting stuff with this. Now, of course, if this doesn't work, you have sec lists which have, I don't know, tons of different word lists for all kind of needs. You can find word lists to fuzz, file extensions, APIs, everything. But since this is a simple CTF, a beginner CTF, we are going to use this word list. I think it will serve us just fine. Okay, we'll let it run. Great, we can see that our nmap has finished. So let's launch Sublime and try to see what it has found. All right, so we have port 21. All right, it's an FTP service. We can also see the version here. Okay, so we could search for possible exploits of this version, and actually that's a good idea to do it now. Okay, well, it has an exploit for our version, but it's remote denial of service. And right now we don't want to bring the system down, we want to hack it. So probably that won't work. We can see some other interesting things here, backdoor command executions, but these are for older versions, so our version will be patched. Of course, we can try to FTP to our machine. Okay, let's copy the IP address here. Okay. We're going to use anonymous since, you know, okay, it hasn't picked an anonymous. I thought, well, oh, okay. Well, anyway, let's try anonymous. Well, although nmap didn't pick the anonymous login possibility, well, here we are. Okay, we have logged in as anonymous. Let's try to ls. Well, it seems to be stuck. Let's try, okay. One more time, nothing. Okay, now let's try to log in as FTP. So let's exit and try to log in as FTP. It was successful again. Well, it doesn't seem to be working. Okay. Well, I guess that FTP is not the right path to follow. We couldn't log in to find any interesting files. There were no known exploits for this specific version, so I guess we'll have to keep moving. Okay, now GoBuster has picked something interesting here. It has picked the directory simple. Okay, so let's try to go right here, simple, and great, we are here. All right, so this directory took us to the actual website, CMS made simple. Now that's a content management system. It's not so commonly used, but here we are. We have this. Okay, so I think it's time to activate our web proxy, renew the page. Great. All right, it has captured these requests. Let's add this to new context. It will make it a lot easier for us to work. And let's try to spider it first, okay, to let it crawl through various stuff so that we can see if it finds anything interesting. Okay, we can see it's running. Now in the meantime, we should probably take a look around the website here. And but before that, I think that it's a good idea to stop Go Buster, but not completely, okay? Since all the content that might be of interest to us is in the simple directory, why not look for more content here, okay? And in addition to that, we can look for some interesting extensions, okay? HTML, PHP, all right? So let's launch, and I'm sure that it will find some very interesting results. As you can see, it has already found some interesting stuff in here, all right? An admin page, well, we should definitely take a look at that. Okay, so let's, I'm sorry, I'll press something else. I'm sorry again. Let's place admin here. Okay, so it has taken us to a login page. Cool, let's open the previous page. Now this is quite important, okay? We can try various things here. All right, we can, for example, we can try default credentials, admin, let's see. Nope. Or admin password. Not again. Well, what's important here is the errors that we see, okay? Errors are gold in trying to figure out how a website works and how you can abuse it. So here it says username or password incorrect. Now, if it said password incorrect, then we would know that we have a valid username. But this one is, I think it's good practice in terms of the application security. So we have to keep in mind this one, all right, for later use perhaps. So we should focus on finding a valid username and password here. Let's see. Okay, it has discovered some other stuff, all right. For example, we could go to, I don't know, assets perhaps. Okay, it has a bunch of stuff here, configs, admin custom. Well, we could direct GoBuster to search more towards these things. We can see a TMP directory, which would also be interesting to search. Okay, cache templates. Okay. Now, this might take time to enumerate, but you should definitely do some serious enumeration in this, since you know you might find password files or database dumps in here that could provide you with passwords and who knows what else interesting goodies. Okay, Okay, so let's get here. Let's keep this page open because we might need it. Now another interesting thing that we could do here is, let's delete that. Okay, is to launch a spider, an Ajax spidering and a website. That might take longer, but it might reveal more interesting stuff in here. So let it run, and in the meantime let's take a look at other stuff. etc, Apache, well, not found, manual, not found again. Oh, let's check the robots.txt. Oh, it has found something. Okay, well, that's an interesting one. So it disallows that entry, and we actually have it right here. Let's see if it has found something. That's a 404. So, well, probably nothing there, but it was on the robots. Well, we might want to keep it in our mind. Okay. Now, another thing that we can do, since we've spidered the page, is take an initial look in our alerts. Okay, so directory browsing sounds interesting. Yeah, the assets, as we said, we can further search in there for other interesting files or anything. Vulnerable JS library, okay, we also keep that in mind in case we get stuck, although I don't know it. I don't think it will lead us to a serious compromise. Information disclosure, suspicious comments is always interesting to look. Alright, many people, developers, leave comments that can lead to breaches. Okay, here it's not a comment, but as you can see, it reveals us the login page, the admin login page. Okay, so let's leave it at that. Now another interesting thing that we can do is to try for some SQL injections in the site. So we have the request here, the post request of a random username and password, and what we can do is to save this request, both headers and body, as a request.raw. Okay, so let's see. Okay, so we can use SQL map -r, which means it asks us for a file, and batch for the default options. Okay, we can let it run in case it might find some SQL injections in either the username or the password. And you know, another interesting thing that we can do, another great tool that we can deploy, is Nikto. Okay, Nikto is another tool, one of my favorites that I like to use for web applications. It can give you a pretty good idea of the website and what's running under the hood. It runs tons of scans for directories, for vulnerable software and technologies being used, for robots. But again, it's a bit of a double sword. I mean, sometimes it will find you great stuff that will help you compromise the web application or the server, and other times it will take quite a long time to run and it will not find anything of interest. But you should definitely let it run from the very beginning of your pen test and see if anything interesting comes up. Okay, now since we can delete that to keep our workspace as clear as possible. Okay, so the Ajax spider here keeps running. Alright, let's check some other stuff. Alright, so one of the first things that we have to do is to take a look at the page. Okay, so here it's the initial CMS MS, all right, page. We can also see that the directory name here is similar to the technology that we're going to exploit, and it also relates to the name of the box. Okay, so that's a useful hint in case you find yourself in some CDFs that they require a bit of a puzzle solving. Okay, it's always useful to try the name of the challenge that you face as a directory or as a password or stuff like that. Okay, let's get back to our web application. So we have this CMS made simple, and we can take a look here. We saw something, yeah, yes, I click here to login, so we could find the page, the login page from here as well, and Spidering has found it, obviously. Another interesting thing here is this, all right? See, it says posted by Mitch, okay? So we have a username here, and we could probably add it to the possible usernames. For example, it could be admin or Mitch or manager or something like that. And all this stuff seems like help or the tutorial that we earlier saw. But what's more interesting is this. This site is powered by CMS Made Simple. Okay, and we have a version number, so we should definitely try to look for vulnerable versions of this one. Okay, so we're going to search for exploits. I've disabled my Foxy proxy here because I don't want to pollute my Zap proxy with random useless requests. And we can see that we found some interesting stuff here. All right, we have found a possible SQL injection and the remote code execution. All right, so let's check the remote code executions first. It seems interesting. Okay. All right. Now that's a Metasploit module, and if we take a look at it, it requires authentication. So it's an authenticated remote code execution. We're going to need a username and a password. Now we have the username, but we still don't have the password. Okay, but we can keep it in our mind for later. Let's go here. Now this SQL injection sounds particularly interesting. The version is right, okay, and if we take a look at it, we can use it at the target. We can use it to crack something, probably the user's password. Okay. All right, and if we take a look here, it has a function that cracks the password, some printing here, some beautifying. It also dumps a salt, a password, username, an email. Okay, and it puts the results later once it finds them. Okay, so if I get this right, this one utilizes a dictionary here, okay, and it tries to brute force each one of those four elements here: the salt, the username, the email, and the password. And if it is able to find them, it gives us the option to crack this password by specifying a certain word list. So what I'm going to do is download this. Okay. Now we could also search exploit for CMS made simple. Okay, we have quite a few. Yeah, the arbitrary file upload, the authenticated. We can also see the file that we just downloaded. It has the same name, in fact. All right, but let's move it to our folder and let's see what's going on here. Okay, so this is obviously a Python 2 exploit. So without further ado, let's try to run it. Okay, that's you. All right, let's see. We're going to copy this, and we'll have to copy simple because, as you remember, the IP address port 80, the root directory is empty. We actually have to set the right directory here. Okay, so let's erase that. Okay, no module name term color. Now I'm going to install it. Let's see. And it throws us an error. Okay. Now that's natural because Python 2 is kind of deprecated, and modules are not being supported anymore. So let's try to run it with Python 3. Of course it will throw some errors, but okay. Well, one thing we have to definitely change is the print arguments. Let's check them real quick. Okay, here and here. Yeah, we have to put here. Let's find some other prints. Okay, here as well. All right. Here. Okay. No, not in here. I think there's something in the end. All right. Yeah. Okay. So let's see. Let's save it and let's try to run it again. But this time we're going to run it with Python 3. Hopefully we've done a great job at converting it. It was a really simple conversion, okay? Nothing special, just change the print lines. Now, if there's something else, an error will be thrown at us and we'll have to make further corrections. Oh, but it's working. Oh, great. All right. So it seems that it's brute forcing. I don't know, probably it's brute forcing the password, or I don't know, the salt, because the username and the email address are probably not random characters. Okay, so this might take a while, so I'll pause the video and I'll get back to you once this finishes. Alright, we're back. Our script has finished. It has found some very interesting stuff for us, okay? It has found the salt for the password, it has found the username, the email, which obviously is for demonstrative reasons, and the password. Okay. However, when we tried to run the crack password option in the script, we got some decode errors. Now I tried to modify the script to fix this error, but unfortunately I could not find a way to crack the password with the exploit. So we'll have to utilize another way of gaining access to the password. For that we will have to take a look at the crack password function here and see what it does. So it actually utilizes the salt and the password that it previously found, and it hashes it with MD5. So that's what we'll want to do. Okay, so we'll create a new file. We'll grab the password here. We'll paste it. We'll use a semicolon and we'll add the salt. Okay, and we're going to save it as a hash.txt. And right now we are going to use hashcat --show hash. So hashcat will try to show us what kind of mode we'll have to use to crack this one. So here we have the pass sold, okay, which is mode 10, and let's try to use hashcat, okay, to crack this password. We're going to use the optimized option. We're going to use the directory attack. The mode will be 10 as stated here, the file and the word list, which is rocky.txt. Let's wait for it to well, it has thrown us an error. Okay, now that's somewhat unlikely. Let's use mode 20, same error again. Okay, so it's not working. Hashcat is not going to help us to this. Well, that's part of the job, okay? I mean, that's why we have so many tools. That's why there are so many resources in the internet. Many times things won't work, and password cracking is something that takes a lot of practice, and it is a lot of, it's a bumpy road, okay? And many times you might even spend hours or days to crack a password only to find that it has been rotated or changed and it won't work anymore. Now let's use another tool, which is John, to crack this hash, and let's specify our word list again. Maybe John will help us. Well, John has not helped us. Okay, we made a mistake here. Okay, now John, instead of the colon, uses the $sign. Okay, so let's run it again. Let's see if it finds something. Okay, as you can see, it's using quite a lot of our resources. But I think that, well, okay, I'm gonna stop this, okay, because I think that we'll have to define a valid format. Okay, so let's do some research first, and then we'll be able to properly crack this password. We'll have to define the right format. Okay, so it's something like John -- format equals something, and I think that it's probably due to the fact that we have a password and a salt. It will take some research to do this, so we'll get back after I figure this out. Okay, so we found a way to crack this password. As I suspected, we needed to define the right form here, which is dynamic. It takes this salt and password, it combines them, and it MD5s them. Okay, so the password is cracked. I did it while the video was paused, and now it's time to show the results. So instead of defining the word list here, we're going to press to show. Now it's very important that you define the format even when you try to show the password, okay, to properly see the cracked password. And here we go, we have our password, okay, secret, a tough password to crack. So let's go immediately here and try this password and see if it works. So Mitch and secret. All right, we have access. Great job. Okay, so we're in the admin console of CMS Made Simple, and that's already a powerful access here because we can deface the site, we can bring it down, we can do various malicious stuff, but our ultimate goal is to gain access to the server that hosts the CMS itself. And here is where the fun begins, because we can do it with a variety of ways, as I'm going to show you here. Okay, so since we have access here, let's close this and let's do some fun stuff here. Okay, Nikto has finished. It has found some interesting directories. You know, do you remember that we left it? Now GoBuster is still running. We also forgot this. Let's clear our screens, and yeah, MySQL hasn't found anything, but it doesn't matter since we have found a way to gain access. Now right here I'm going to launch MSF console, and you'll see in a while why. So here we have access to this. Now our hunch tells us that we'll need to upload a malicious PHP file, a reverse shell, and start a listener to our machine and gain access to it. Okay, but before we do this, let's go for easy wins. Okay, now when you're pen testing, you have to remember the basic concepts of cybersecurity and pen testing. And one of the most common security threats that many people and organizations face is password reuse. Okay, so people use the same passwords over and over again, and we can actually try the passwords that we find in various sites and services. Okay, so we've logged in the admin console here. Why not try to log in to, oh no, FTP didn't require a password, okay, but why not try to log in via SSH? Okay, do you remember that we found port 2222 here open? So why not try to SSH as Mitch in this server? Of course it won't allow us because we haven't defined the right port. Okay, yes, secret, and bingo, we're in. Okay, now we didn't have to try anything fancy in the website because Mitch has done the grave mistake of reusing his password. So who are we? We're Mitch. Okay, great stuff. And we have already user access here. Okay, if we try to upload a reverse shell, we would have gained probably a lower level access like www-data. Okay, so we have a great shell here, and we can utilize it to try and gain root access. But for now, we are going to leave our SSH access and try to do some other stuff. So let's see, since we have a valid username and password, let's see if Metasploit has a way to get us in the machine. Okay, we have the RC via file upload copy, the one that we saw earlier, and it has a rank of excellent. So let's try to use this. So let's see our options. So let's begin setting them. Set password to secret and set our hosts to our address. Set target URI to simple, okay, because that was the root directory for our web application. Set username as Mitch, and let's set the lhost to our VPN address, and let's leave the port as it is. Okay, let's try to exploit it. Target is not exploitable. All right, let's try this with this option. Okay, it seems that we actually got an interpreter session, huh? How cool. Great stuff. Great stuff indeed. All right, fantastic. We have an interpreter session. Get UID, we're www-data. Okay, that's not bad. Okay, cool. Okay, now let's background this session. All right, we can see that we have an interpreter PHP Linux session. Why not try to upgrade it? Let's see if that is possible. Okay, it's in stage, that's good. All right. So let's see our sessions now. Okay, so right now we don't have a PHP interpreter session, but we have an actual interpreter cell that is based on this Linux architecture, on the specific architecture of Linux. So cool. We have 2 interpreter sessions, that's great. Now, what if we didn't want to utilize Metasploit? For example, what if we were preparing for OSCP and we didn't want to use Metasploit at all? Well, there is a way to get into that machine. As we mentioned before, we can upload a malicious reverse shell, and that's what actually Metasploit does. Okay, it just does it automatically for us. Okay, as you remember, the initial session we got was a PHP interpreter session, and that's what we're going to do. But before we do that, let's open, oh no, first of all, let's locate a PHP reverse shell. Okay, now here we can copy this here. We can open it, modify it a bit. Let's delete those comments as well. Let's place our right VPN address. Since port 4s are reserved for our interpreter sessions, we're going to use port 5555. Okay, now let's rename it to something more appropriate and short. Shell.php, clear. Okay, and let's go here to the file manager, and let's try to upload this nice PHP reverse shell. Let's see if we can get access here. Okay, it's SimpleCTF. All right, and before we do that, let's open a Polecat listening shell at the port specified. Now, Polecat is a great tool. It's a lot like Netcat, but it's more of a C2 the framework. It allows you to upload and download files, do various stuff. It's a great tool. I use it all the time, but sometimes it won't work. If the connection is too weak, it will die as soon as you get it. So you can always revert back to the traditional netcat. But I truly recommend this. You can install it via pip and launch it via your command line. It's a great tool. You'll love it. So let's get here and try to upload our shell.php. Okay, let's try it one more time. Nothing. It's not uploaded. And that probably happens because the site doesn't want us to upload anything malicious. That's actually good practice. Okay. So right now we'll have to find a way to bypass it. Okay. And we'll need to find, we know we want to upload a PHP file, but we might need to change it a bit. We might need to use double extensions, for example, txt.txt.php or .php.txt or .php5, alter the final the extension a bit, but for that work we need to see what's going on under the hood. So if we try to upload it, okay, we've now intercepted the request. All right, we can see here we have our post request. Okay, all right, and it says here error accept file name. So obviously it has not accepted that file name. Probably the extension is a problem. So what we can do here is disable our Foxit proxy again and try to see what kind of files it accepts, files similar to PHP. Now we can do that manually, but we'll utilize the power of our automation tools to do this. So let's try and search for file extension word list. Okay. And let's say GitHub. Okay. Okay, we have an interesting thing here. Okay, you can see various commonly used extensions, but we're more focused on PHP. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to take this right here and we're going to open it to a request editor. Okay, and we will try to fuzz the file extension to see what is allowed to be uploaded and what not. So we're going right here to the file name, we highlight the extension, right click and fuzz it. Okay, we've chosen the fuzz location and now it's time to add a payload. Okay, we're going to use strings. Now let's copy the PHP related ones. Obviously we don't want to upload any ASPX. We want to limit our you know, the possible results. We don't want to see a bunch of unrelated file extensions. And I think I saw some other interesting here in the end, so let's also try these. Okay, here let's paste those as well. Let's add them. Okay, we'll press OK and let's start our fuzzer. Okay, it's finished pretty quickly. Now we know that this one indicates an error where it was not uploaded. Okay, and we can see here we have the same error. So let's try to use them to sort them by desired response. Now the bigger desired response probably it means that it was probably accepted. Okay, I guess this was accepted. It says delete URL, delete type. Okay, let's see. Okay, we see that PHTML or PHT were uploaded. Okay, and if we go right here to the file manager, okay, and we refresh, we can see that the files that we found were actually uploaded. Okay, of course, in a real life pen test, we'll want to clear this out once the assessment is over. What's interesting here is that this is an image, these are unknown files, but this one little elephant here, it probably means that it's executable. So the PHTML file was successfully uploaded, and probably it will be able to be launched as a PHP shell. Now that might work. Let's check this out. Okay, cannot be displayed because it contains error. Yes, it's a PNG image. Let's try this one. Okay, outputs a bunch of text, but if we click here, all right, it worked perfectly. Okay, so what we did here was fuzz file extension with PHP related extensions and see what gets recognized as a PHP application file and gets uploaded at the same time. All right, and PHTML works charms for us. All right, so here we have a session now, great, as www.data, and if we press back, okay, who am I? Yep, I'm www.data. Great stuff. All right, and let's see what's at home. All right, home, ls, city Mitch, no permission denied, city Sandbath, permission denied as well. Okay, let's see what's at opt. Nothing's in there. So, okay, now we have three different ways of access to the machine. Okay, we have first of all an SSH access as Mitch, which is great. We also have, all right, let's kill session 1. We don't need it anymore. We have an interpreter session as www.datauser, okay, and we have also a simple shell with Tomcat, all right, from our manual way of exploitation. So I'm going to show you another trick here, okay. So say that there was no module here to exploit the specific technology, or your actual preferred way was to gain a shell via Tomcat or Netcat. How can you transfer this shell to an interpreter session? Now there are various ways, but the simplest one is to use a web delivery exploit. So if we use 5, which is multi-script web delivery, we can see that we can craft a web delivery payload, launch it to the simple Tomcat or Netcat shell that we have, and get access to Metasploit. All right, so let's see. Let's set srv host or TryHackMe VPN, set lhost. All right, set lport. I'm going to use this port right now. And if we see the target, we have various options. We have Python, Perl, PHP, PowerShell. So let's go here, see what kind of Python version is installed. Python 3, cool, all right. I think target 0, okay. And if we run it, what it will do is to start a reverse TCP handler here and gives us the payload. Now, if I grab the payload and let's close that, add the Python 3 here just to be sure that we'll properly execute. If I paste it here, then guess what? You see, we have another interpreter session here, which is actually very, very cool. Okay, now if we see sessions, we have now a Python Linux interpreter shell in this machine. Now we don't need this, so I'm going to kill it. Okay, and we'll be left with this one. Now another great thing that you want to keep in mind is this. Now if you have SSH login stuff in your hands, either a username or password, or a username and an ID RSA key, you can use these nice modules to log in with Metasploit. All right, so you can see here, instead of setting username, user pass files or password files, you can define a single username or a single password. So you will be able to SSH via Metasploit, and with the trick I showed you before, you can try to upgrade that session to an interpreter shell. Okay, and the same can happen if you don't have a password but you have an ID RSA file. Okay, so you might wonder, why the hell do I want to get an interpreter session? Well, the reason is this. When you have an interpreter session, you can use the local suggester to get valuable insight on possible exploits, especially kernel exploits. Okay, so we're going to use the local exploit suggester with the Linux interpreter session to find possible kernel exploits. And that's actually the reason that I upgraded my original PHP session to an x86 Linux session, because it will be much more accurate to find the right exploits, and it will probably be more stable. Okay, so let's see if anything interesting comes up in terms of kernel exploits. It runs various things. Well, it will try quite a few exploits. Now, while this finishes, let's get back to our original SSH session and try to escalate our privileges from here. So let's try and do sudo -l. It's probably the very first command you want to launch in a machine and want to get access to it, because it can really reveal various interesting stuff. All right, for example, environmental paths or commands that you have that you can launch without password. Okay, that's interesting. So root has, so we have the ability to launch this command right here without password. Okay, so VAM is a well-known utility in Linux, and the way we are going to try to exploit it is via GTFO bins. Okay. Now GTFO bins is the golden standard to try to exploit Unix binaries. All right. So we can try and search VIM All right, here we are. And you can see we have tons of options here. We can get a reverse shell, bind shells, upload files, download files, anything that you might wonder. Okay, we can exploit capabilities. All right, capabilities are a more modern way of doing SUID stuff, and let's try to do something like this to our machine and see if we can get root. Okay, we're root. So privilege escalation was as simple as that. Now remember, this is a simple box, and well, that's why it was so simple. Okay, so that was pretty easy, pretty straightforward. Okay, GDFO bins is the golden standard if you find that you can run Windows binaries without password. So we have compromised the box, but let's get back to our Linux local suggester and see if there's any other way. Okay, so we found that this might be a way to also escalate our roots. Okay, so let's search the SU login. Okay, so let's use this right here. Okay, set session to set lhost and set lport to, we'll use the 7th right now. All right. Okay. Let's try to disable auto check, although it didn't prevent us. Let's try to launch it one more time. Well, might not be exploitable that way. And if this doesn't work, okay, it didn't work, never mind. So let's set session to set lhost. Okay, set lport here, and let's try to exploit it. All right, the target appears to be vulnerable. Okay, launching, let's see if it will give us something. I'm not very optimistic about it, but you never know. Oh well, no session was created. Why not try this one? All right, let's set the session, set lhost, set lport, and try to exploit pkexec. Well, the exploits that the local suggester suggested, well, they don't seem to be working. Okay, but this should not dishearten us. We already have root access. Well, the reason I wanted to show you this is that we can do some interesting post-exploitation things. with Metasploit. Okay, so here we already have root access. We're root. So let's try something else. All right. All right, we're going to use the old web delivery script. I want to show you some interesting stuff. Okay, so let's set lport to this now. Let's run it. Okay. And let's deliver that payload to our root shell. Okay, great. So right now we have opened a new Meterpreter session, okay, which however has root access. All right, you can see here that we have root access. Let's try to upgrade it. Okay, let's see. All right, we have, great. So we only need that session. So let's kill 2 and 4. All right, great. So let's interact. Get UID. We're already root. Great. All right, so let's do some post-exploitation magic. Now we have root access. What if we want to persist in this machine? Okay, so let's search for persistence modules. Okay, there are various things that we can do. Of course, we'll want to search for Linux. Okay, now that's an excellent one as it's rated here. See, exploit Linux local service persistence. Okay, so let's use this. Let's show options. Okay, so let's set session 5. Great. Let's set lhost. Okay, set lport for 9s. Let's show targets. Okay, we have various interesting targets. Let's review our options one more time. Great. Okay, so let's run this post-exploitation module. All right, we see that it's doing some interesting stuff here. All right, great stuff. It has opened a new shell session. Okay, so what it actually does is that it comes here as a root and it creates a service. So you can see here in our original root shell that a service has been created here. Now these strange names are typically found in Metasploit. Okay, so this right here will be used. Okay, so here we can see that right now we have another session. Okay, in this machine we are currently upgrading it. Okay, we try to upgrade it. Now the thing with this session, I don't know if it has been completed or if we interrupted it. Okay, yeah, it opens. So the thing here with these sessions is, okay, great stuff. All right, let's kill session 5 and let's kill session 7. And we're left with session 8. Now, the thing with this session is that it will persist, okay? So if we see again here, this thing right here, okay, this right here will allow us to have access to the machine each time it launches. So we've created a service that will run when the system starts. So every time someone starts a computer, we'll have access to this machine, and not only will have access, but we'll have root access. Okay, so that's why Metasploit or any other C2 framework is great, because it gives you the opportunity to establish persistence on that system, and much more interesting stuff. You can also pivot, and you can do port forwarding, you can do various other things. Now, before we close our machine, okay, if we had a www-data access to the machine, then we would probably want to escalate. All right, we don't know the password, we'll have to press enter 3 times. We would probably want to escalate first to Mitch and then go for root. Now, I won't cover this since the video is already too large, but you could run lean enum scripts in the system, or you could try to, I don't know, try to do password reuse that way. Okay, great, password reuse has worked, or perhaps, and I think that might be a valid way, to try to search for the password of Mitch in a config file, maybe stored in plain text in here, and then you could escalate to Mitch, and from Mitch to root. You could do various stuff, or even if you're user Mitch, you could, instead of using the sudo-l, you could run lean piece or any other lean enumeration script to see what kind of capabilities and clearance you have in the system to escalate your privileges. So I think we did a quite extensive walkthrough of this machine. We covered quite a few ways of exploiting it, again the initial shell in this machine, and we also saw some other things like establishing persistence. So I want to thank you for watching. I hope it was not too long and tiresome, and I'll be back with more videos, and that's not a threat.